I underestimated Jingliu a lot, and on my preview. And so, what was my assumption gonna be to where I underestimated Jingliu and she's way better than I thought? I thought that she was gonna be the second best character in the entire game. Nope, she's the best. She's the best character DPS in the game, bar none. Okay, she's not the best character in the entire game. No. She's far from a staple, but at this point, she's so good. She might unironically be like, yeah, throw her in any content you want and profit. So let's go over to why Jingliu's kit is busted and what are the things that makes her busted and how they all freaking synergize together to make a package that's the greatest thing since sliced bread in Honkai Star Rail. So the things that makes her busted, her talent's the reason why she's busted. But let me explain. Let me break it down. So first, the attack percent. Next, the what's it called? The crit rate buff. And lastly, her ability to utilize Bronya. Okay. On my, what's it called, preview, I assumed that the attack is going to be good, but it might hit a diminishing return. That's what I thought. And the reason why I thought that is because when you run attack percent substats on your relics, you don't invest into crit rate and crit damage. So while yes, you are contributing to your damage, you're not contributing to the consistency of crits and to the upper ceiling of crit attacks or like crit damage essentially. So if you crit, you gain a lot more damage than not critting, even if you have higher attack. Except in this case, this is attack percent from her skill. Because it's from her skill, that means you're freely able to pour stats into your crit rate and crit damage without having to like go on investing into attack percent. And that's a really good because it essentially acts as bonus motion value for her skills. Now, if you don't know what motion value is, it's basically these ratios right here. Basically the attack, like her scaling stat to the damage ratio. So like 200% of Jingliu's, 218% of Jingliu's attack, that's a motion value. 270% Jingliu's attack, that's a motion value, etc. Because it makes it seem smaller than it is, but the attack buff makes it a lot larger. And the other thing that synergizes with the attack percent is consistency. By having like 50% crit rate unconditionally by entering her enhanced state, you're able to, again, you don't have to pour substats into attack. You don't have to pour substats in crit rate. So you're able to pour minimal substats into consistency and it just straight up increase the amount of damage your damage output. You don't have to worry about consistency, which is absurd. How much consistency? Near 100%. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, she can hit 100% crit rate, but you shouldn't do that because you should go into more crit damage. And I would say, no, do not do that. Get as close as you can to 90% crit damage or 100% crit damage. Why? Well, if you're sitting at, like me, like 50% crit damage, there's a small chance, well, I mean, I say small, but there's a 50-50 chance at minimum you crit with your unenhanced skill. And that's going to be a decent chunk of damage. But if you're on her enhanced attacks, you want that to deal as much damage as possible. So by always having 100% or near 100% crit rate, you're always hitting the peak of your damage all the time. Well, when you're enhanced, but still, the time you're doing your DPS or your damage rotations, you're hitting the peak of it. There's never a time where you miss a crit, because that's a lot of the problems they have with other characters. Like IL is pretty strong, but his damage has variability. Sometimes he just might not crit, because even though it's a 70% crit rate, there's still a 30% chance for me to miss a crit. Same thing with Seal. Okay, I don't have my Seal built, but like okay, same thing with Seal. If Seal doesn't crit, her damage is basically god awful. And Seal is a character that benefits more with the more damage you have on her. The more damage you have on Seal, the better character she becomes. But if she doesn't do damage, she becomes a mediocre character. Like, imagine triggering resurgence. Sorry, imagine figuring out how to trigger resurgence when you can't kill enemies. Oh, but you use her ult. Well, using her ult doesn't matter because one, so you're either gonna use her ult as an extender to kill weak enemies, which is a DPS loss, or you're still gonna have to waste turns, waste skill points on enemies you can't kill, and it just sucks. Jingliu though, when Jingliu gets her talent up, she's guaranteed to do damage. These characters, they're not completely guaranteed to do damage. They will miss crits. They may not have their upper ceiling because these characters, they still have to invest in their attack percent. They still have to invest in their crit rate. They still have to invest in the crit damage. So all these characters are being pulled into three directions: consistency, base damage, and the upper limit of their damage. Jingliu, she's not forced into any one of those. She already has attack percent for her base damage. She already has the consistency. Where else are you gonna go? Crit damage. I mean, you could go attack percent, but still, it's like a lot of things she does have synergy with each other. But the last thing that I think is really, really underrated is Bronya. A lot of people prioritize S1 or E1, and I'm like, no, screw that. Go into Bronya. Get Bronya. Why? Because Bronya gives Jingliu multiple turns. Now, someone may say, well, why do you want to use Bronya? If you buff Jingliu advance forwards, so she won't get the attack buff. But like, that's not the point. The point to Bronya buffing Jingliu is for Jingliu to get an extra turn. By giving Jingliu an extra turn, she plays twice as fast. What does that mean? She gets twice the amount of damage per cycle than she would usually do, potentially even more, because sometimes Jingliu is gonna have a turn where she's not gonna be enhanced, so she's gonna have downtime. But if you have Bronya, the downtime is almost completely gone. She's almost always gonna have an enhanced skill at least once per cycle, and that's a lot better than, having one turn where you hit for like a paltry 6k 7k. Even if you were like, oh, what if I just make Bronya really fast, make Jingliu on attack boots, and like do a fast Bronya build, and I'm like, no, that's stupid. Why? Well, because okay, let's say Jingliu is dealing like normal without Bronya's buff. She does like 40k. She does 40k on her enhanced skill against like 3 enemies. Now, if you buff her with Jingliu with Bronya, maybe you do like 50k, right? 55k? Potentially 60k. Now, if you make Jingliu, who does 40k per skill, and Bronya, and make Bronya give Jingliu an extra turn, potentially you're gonna do 80k per freaking cycle, which is a lot more than something like 55k, 60k, way more than that. And guess what? Because you're able to access more turns, you get access to more of your ult. By having more of your ult, you're able to get more stacks for free, and getting more stacks with her is like free SP and basically free damage, and it gives her even more damage because it enhances the amount of time she's in her talent. That's why I don't like it when people do garbage like, oh, let me make Bronya really fast and Jingliu really slow. It's dumb. It's dumb. Alright, so Jingliu's gear. I would always recommend the ice set, because, well, look, it has a lot of synergy with her, and, you want crit damage on her. She gets a lot of attack, she gets a lot of crit rate, so yeah, crit damage is the last thing you want to invest into. Now, there are some people saying, okay, what about quantum set? Okay, here's the thing about the quantum set. Farming the quantum set sucks, because if you get the damage reduction set, it's basically worthless on any character. Like, it's too slow, it's too weak, you don't use it, it's never going to be used. The wind set, on the other hand, yeah, you can use the wind set on other characters, not for damage, but for advanced forward. Now, the trinkets that I would recommend is always Rutilant Arena, because it's going to increase the damage bonus on her skill by 20%, and it's easy for her to reach the 70% crit rate with just like a crit rate body. So yeah, and skill is where most of her damage is going to come from. So that's the reason why you're not really going to run Inert Salsodo. Her ult is not where most of her damage comes from, and her ult takes a long while to actually go online because 140 cost energy. Now, there is some people running the Space Ceiling Station. Do not run the Space Ceiling Station. If you want attack percent, get it from your relic substats, not this, because this is kind of a waste. You're better off running Rutilant Arena for the damage bonus on her skill. I see some people run the really, really dumb Lightcones, like Under the Blue Sky. Under the Blue Sky is a really, really bad Lightcone, and you really shouldn't use it because it gives nothing really. 16% attack unconditionally, but when you defeat an enemy, you gain crit rate. But the thing is, again, the crit rate won't activate unless you kill an enemy, so it's basically dead. Half the Lightcone is dead when you're in a single target scenario. And the attack percent is not really that impressive, as I'll get into a little bit. Collapsing Sky is probably the best if you have nothing. But it's still pretty good because you have, basic attack and skill damage bonus, which is really going to help with the damage, because even though, unlike Secret Vow, it doesn't buff ult, it will buff skill, which is where most of your damage is going to come from, as I've repeated like a billion times. The Most Welcome You is better than Under the Blue Sky. I'm not sure if it's better than the Collapsing Sky, though. The Collapsing Sky may be better. But, like, you get way too much attack if you ask me, and even if you max it out to, like, 70% attack percent, it's like, not a fan. Not really a fan because, yeah. With the Secret Vow, it gives you damage bonus, which is what you really, really want. You're trying to make Jingliu a lot more balanced overall, since this buffs her ult and her skill. And in the situation where Jingliu's low HP, or at least lower than the enemy, well, you get a lot of damage. And if you do have this at max refinement, it's gonna be the best slot option. It's gonna have like the bonus of Collapsing Sky, but with better stats, and if you're lower HP, that's massive. Now, something irreplaceable is something that I kind of I felt like I underestimated, but it's actually pretty interesting. It's an interesting option to where, if you kill an enemy or Jingliu gets hit, if you kill an enemy with Jingliu or if Jingliu's hit, you gain a lot of damage bonus. Now, because I didn't really read it that much, it says until the end of the next turn. So because Jingliu does advance forward, this can be very, very good. It may be better than On the Fall of an Eon. No. On the Fall of an Eon is a lot better, but if you don't have that much, something irreplaceable can work. I mean, if you're gonna run things like what's her name, Lynx, and then you Lynx target Jingliu to be aggroed more, that can work. That can work pretty well. The only reason why On the Fall of an Eon is better is because it gives a lot more attack percent, and it is gonna be maybe more, maybe less consistent, because this does require weakness break, but this requires simple as getting hit or defeating an enemy. So it's like half and half. But I like On the Fall of an Eon way more on what's his name, IL, because IL will always break enemies really, really fast. So yeah. Plus IL scales off better with attack because he doesn't really have that much attack, and it's much more preferred. Jingliu already has a bunch of attack, so yeah. Okay. Her best in slot, or her signature weapon, Lightcone. It's crazy. So it gives her crit damage, which again, that's something that she doesn't really have in her kit. So crit damage is what you're going to want to invest in. And if enemies hit allies, or allies lose their HP in any way whatsoever, that includes her skill, it will give her 1 stack, which gives her damage bonus up to 3 stacks, which is a total of like 42% damage bonus. That's pretty big. And then she gains 12% defense ignore. Is it defense ignore? Yeah, defense ignore, which is really, really good. These are things that like imagine if her Lightcone gave her energy recharge, or gave her a crit rate, or gave her attack percent. Like, imagine how worthless that would be. But this case, no, it's very, very potent. But again, Bronya is much more important than her light cone or E1. So yeah. For characters, you already know Pela, Bronya, and Luocha slash Fushuan, depending on who you have. Yeah. Bronya is the most important piece for Jingliu. Jingliu needs extra turns, which Bronya gives. Those extra turns allow Jingliu to gain more stacks, spend more stacks, and increase the uptime of ult like per cycle. So yeah. There's also the crit damage and attack buff that she gives with her ult, which is very, very good. That's what you want. And Pela is a lot better than Silver Wolf, if you ask me. The reason is that Pela defense shreds the entire enemy line. So she can defense shred 5 enemies, unlike Silver Wolf, who defense shreds 1 enemy at most. Well, sure, Silver Wolf has the bugs and the all res down, but it's like Pela can like apply a 40% defense shred on all enemies. And because it's all enemies, what does Jingliu's main form of damage? Blast. So you hit 3 enemies whose defense is reduced by 40%. That's incredibly, incredibly good. And because Jingliu's damage is really, really potent, if you kill like 3 enemies, there's still gonna be some enemies left that are still gonna be defense shredded. If you kill an enemy who's defense shredded by Silver Wolf, well, you don't get the defense shred anymore because it's only applied on one. Now, sure, there are the bugs, but the bugs are very, very small. They're like 7-8% defense shred, and it's very RNG on if you actually get the defense down, because there's also the attack down and the speed down. So, yeah, not really that great. And some people may say, oh, what if you run Silver Wolf and you run Quantum Set for Jingliu? Well, Pela will still, on average, have more defense shred because you're defense shredding 3 enemies for 120% for Pela. Silver Wolf, well, you're hitting 90% defense shred on 3 enemies? It's not really that great. Like, maybe you'll come close to Pela, but it's like, you'll have to go through a lot more hoops with Silver Wolf, especially since you're going to have to go and use her skill and waste 1 skill point to have the 50-50 chance of applying quantum weakness. Now, another problem is that you also scuff up your team. So potentially you're not going to be able to run Bronya if you want the consistency of Jingliu having defense shred on her quantum set. But it's like I'd rather not run Silver Wolf and just run Pela, just run Bronya. Really have an easy team, easy to run. There you go. With Tingyun and Asta, I'm not really a fan of both of them. Starting with Tingyun, Tingyun's attack buff doesn't really give that much attack, and because Jingliu makes a lot of turns, well, Tingyun's attack buff is going to fade a lot faster, and so you're going to need to spend more skill points to actually keep it up. And that essentially negates the reason why you bring Tingyun in, which is for, you bring her in for her SP efficiency. But you could play around that by, only buffing Jingliu when Jingliu's enhanced, but a problem is that you're not really able to bring Bronya in, I guess. Yeah. And although Tingyun can give Jingliu more energy, it's only good in situations where you want a 0 cycle, which I don't think the normal person should try to 0 cycle. I mean, I'm not trying to, and yeah. But you'll gain a lot more energy if you have Bronya cheating out extra turns. So it's oh hey, every cycle your energy generation is doubled. It's a lot better than waiting 3-4 turns for Tingyun to actually get her ult up, and it's only a one time of 50 energy, 50-60 energy. Not really a fan of it. And it does give you damage bonus, but Bronya gives crit damage. She gives attack percent on her ult. It's there's no contest. With Asta, I think Asta's really, really interesting, but I'm still not a fan because he does give a lot of attack, which is good, but the reason why you bring Asta in is for her speed boost. So if you have Asta's speed boost, it's a lot shorter than it would be normally because it only lasts for 2 turns, but because Jingliu does advance forward, there will be times when Asta shouldn't or can't buff Ting Jingliu's speed. Okay, I'm getting the Chinese names messed up. Oh my god. But like yeah, Asta just can't keep up her speed up like 100% of the time, so you're gonna hold her ult, but it does mean that your teammates are gonna be a lot slower than they would be if Asta kept buffing them. So yeah, there's that, unfortunately. Now there is the Blade in Jingliu, and I would say no, don't run Blade in Jingliu. Jingliu does nothing for Blade, and Blade does nothing for Jingliu. Why? Because if you're gonna run Bronya, Blade, Jingliu, and solo sustain, Bronya's the Bronya's gonna be buffing Jingliu only. So that means Blade isn't getting any buffs whatsoever. Blade isn't able to utilize the defense shred of Pela, nor is Blade able to have multiple turns that Bronya gives him. So it's like, what's the point? You're making Blade's damage suck because Blade's damage is already sucky compared to a Jingliu, but Jingliu's also reduced in potential because Pela's not there. So you don't have access to defense shred, and like all you're doing with Blade is you're giving him more follow-up attacks. But it's like, if Blade doesn't do damage, what's the point of him throwing follow-up attacks? And even if you wanted to AoE, Jingliu can already do what Blade does, but like infinitely better. So why scuff up Blade and scuff up Jingliu just to have them both run? Like, sure, you want the coverage, but Jingliu's already so good. Jingliu can contend against a 20% ice resistance. Like, that's how good Jingliu is, so why run Blade? Okay, is there anyone else? No, I don't think there's anyone else for the team. Yeah. Okay, there is Hanya, but I need to wait until Hanya's full kit is out. But Hanya's probably gonna be really, really good. Yeah. Maybe not. Hopefully. But Hanya did get nerfed, so yikes. And I think that's everything. This is probably going to be a 20-minute video, unfortunately, because I'm not running a script. Because if I'm running a script, it'll take years, considering the fact that I'm still working on the Steel video. Well, I'm still working on the script writing because I'm... okay, it's better to be done than perfect, but okay. Yeah, Jingliu is absurd. Her kit actually has synergy with how she plays. The attack buff she gets synergizes with the crit rate buff she gets because she's able to increase the upper limit of her damage and increase the consistency of her damage to where you can just focus on damage. I mean, you want to have at least a little bit of consistency with like 40 to 50%, but like 40 to 50% is not that difficult to hit. Because she has such a high consistency and such a high ceiling, she's able to almost always hit her ceiling, unlike other characters who have variability. Sometimes IL won't crit, sometimes Seal won't hit. Sorry, crit, I mean. You know? But Jingliu, very, very consistent. Very, very powerful. Oh man, why is this character so good? I'm starting to assume that maybe we doom posted so hard that maybe her original kit was actually going to be pretty decent. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. If you've made it this far, thanks. See y'all later. Thanks for watching this mess of a video as always. See y'all later. Bye.